he walked onto the stage with his sponsor, the person who invited him to be there. And she asked him in front of a crowd of thousands of people, she said to this young man, about 9 years old, "So tell us, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And she was pretty sure that his answer was going to be, "I want to be a teacher. I want to be an educator. I want to be just like you." And he pulled her down so she would lean into his ear, and he held the mic away from himself and he whispered, his little 10-year-old self. He said, "Is it okay if I just say I want to be happy?" Now that, my friends, is a profound question. Is it okay if I say I just want to be happy? And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with StoryPower. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPowerAcademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training. Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. There are many occasions where a leader will look at their team and they think to themselves, my top performers are slacking off. They're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. They're not participating in the way that they should be participating. They could be performing at an even higher level than they are right now, and they're just not there. You're not exactly sure why that's the case. You just know that I'm not getting my KPIs, my goals, my standards of expectations for them. They're so far off. They must not care about their job anymore. They must not like what it is that they're doing. Sometimes that notion, that thought, they don't like what they're doing, is so far down the line from the leader's thought. The leader's thought is, well, they must not want their job. They must not care about the paycheck. They don't care what we want. And so you think, well, they're just slacking off for other reasons. And we never ask the question, why are you not giving 100%? Why are you not performing? We've got all the measurements. We know what time you're supposed to be here and what time you're supposed to leave, what the numbers are you're supposed to produce, what your sales commissions are. I'm on a lot of calls with Grant Cardone's team. And if you listen to Brandon Dawson and Jared talk about how they track the performance. I mean, Jared can tell you, and he has some spreadsheets. Spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet. Every department head has one. They pull these spreadsheets out and they're like, how many minutes were you on the call? Or how many seconds were you on the call? How many dials did you make today? How many outbound calls? How many inbound calls? How many of those led to a conversation? And how many of those conversations led to a close? How many of those closes had a dollar value over X or under X? How many of those dollar values then led to a further sale? How many of those clients that you closed in that conversation have become lifelong clients? What's the lifelong value of that client? And now there's a metric to actually go back and say a lifelong client's worth $10,000, and that $10,000 came from the 15th phone call, and in the 15th phone call there was a 7-minute conversation which led to an upgrade. And at some point you lose the fact that that $10,000 sale is a human, and that salesperson that closed the deal also most likely a human. Now that may be changing in the days of AI, because I know there are a lot of people that are moving their inbound sales and their customer service over to AI. So you're not even talking to a human, but see, AI doesn't get tired. They don't have opinions. AI never wants a day off to go fishing. AI is never concerned about a child having a birthday party that they're going to miss because, it's a big sales day. It's the end of the month and you got to get commissions, and AI doesn't have that problem. But see, as we continue to move to a society that's more focused on AI profitability and margins, I mean, yeah, we may have to invest a lot up front in our data centers and our purchasing of the software and our managing our license, et cetera, et cetera. But once we've done that, Once we've got all that money invested and out of the way, now all of a sudden we have a much more efficient workforce. Look, go back to the turn of the century. All right, go back to the turn of the last century. And what you're going to find is labor unions were created because big industry, big money didn't look at humans, they looked at profit margins. And they didn't care if it was migration or the work age or the work hours or the limitations on workspaces. How long can we leave them in a coal mine? As long as they dig out enough coal. Oh, we'll compensate their families if we lose them, but we've got to get enough coal out of there for profit. We've got to get enough goods shipped across the sea to make a profit, and the more profit, the better. What we call slave labor it's not a colloquialism. Workers' unions were put together because some industrialists were so driven by profit, they didn't care if they snatched mom out of the home and put her in the workplace, or snatched the kids out of the home or out of the school and put them in the workplace. A lot of the principles and practices that we have in Western society today are there because profit-driven leaders forgot that they had humans doing the job. Now, it's easy today to get into a place where we have standards, we have KPIs, we have measurements, we have these ways of knowing that the team that we're working with is actually doing the job we're paying them to do. And all of those things are good. Those metrics are good. It's good to know what's going on in your business. In fact, there's an old management principle that says you cannot manage what you do not measure. So if you're not tracking how many phone calls they're making, how many emails they're sending, how long those conversations are, you're not going to know whether or not you're going to get results. And if you do get results, it might be an accident and a fluke, and you're not going to know what to duplicate to get a better result. Right? You could very easily look at your metrics and the 4 M's: model, mimic, master, multiply. Well, if you don't have enough measurement of your model, how do you know what to mimic? You don't know if it's any good or not. But see, we still begin in that process very quickly to move from the human being to the human doing. And what we find often is that our team is not slacking, they're cracking. They're beginning to fragment themselves. They have to, for sanity's sake, sometimes literally, separate themselves in the job from themselves in life. They have to step away from the job for a moment. That's why they take long vacations. They have to step away from the job for a moment and try to gain their sanity back and ground themselves and go, who am I in this world? What is my purpose? Is it just to drive profit? Is it just to stuff money in the bank? Is it just to stack cash? And for some people, that's what drives them. No judgment. If that's what drives you, if that's why you're here, that's between you and your maker. But if your purpose is something different than just stacking cash, just buying stuff, just having things, then losing touch with that is a genuine crisis. We wonder why our mental health conditions across the world are what they are right now, and a lot of it has to do with that hard-driving, fast-paced, Twitch-based society. I mean, the social media and the phones and the video games and the conversations and everything seems to happen very, very fast. I've trained my own clients in the conversation concept that when someone asks a question, their anticipation, because of the way they've been trained by social media, by regular media, by conversations they're having with coworkers and other people in the work environment, their expectation of your answer is a list of bullet points or a very quick 30-second story that runs the entire gamut of everything they need to know very quickly. And it may end with, hey, go look here, watch this video, read this book. What they don't want is a Harry Potter novel. They ask a 10-second question, they expect a 30-second answer. They have 15 more questions for you where they expect 10 to 30-second answers. And they ask the first question and you give them a 900-page answer. And you've lost them. It's no wonder, as our brains are being trained to respond to things in very short times, to hear things in very short times, to pay attention to a very short time, a very limited amount of information. It's no wonder that when we set someone to a task that is repeated over and over and over again for 8 hours a day, or a task that takes months to complete, that we lose their attention, we lose their focus. And then they feel like my life is incomplete. I didn't get to check off the list. I didn't get to do the part that I wanted to. Now, I've recently really talked about, even here on this podcast, I've talked about the 6 types of working genius. And this idea of slacking versus cracking, it seems completely remote from those two things, but I want you to think for a moment about personality profiles and assessments like DISC, like StrengthsFinders. Those are two of my two favorites for personality, but the 6 types of working genius is a different kind of thing. It really looks at not just your personality, but your working style. And it asks the question, what really lights you up? What is it that makes you happy about doing the work that you do? How do you know that the work you do is worthwhile to you? Many people have never had the opportunity to ask that question. In fact, in one of the blog podcasts about 6 types of working genius, Patrick Lencioni, who actually wrote the book, said, we actually have had several people, dozens of people, thousands of people now go through this assessment. And one of the ladies went through the assessment and she said, well, I've always been an attention to detail kind of person, always driving the bottom line, making sure the checklists were ticked off, et cetera, et cetera. She said, this is just the way I do my job. This is the way I do my work. A few years later, she came back and took the test again. The assessment gave her a completely different result. It was a different read. What she really enjoyed doing, what really lit her up in life, what was really in her wheelhouse, her comfort zone, I could do this in my sleep and still love it, as opposed to this is what I do every day and it's a grind. In the 6 types of working genius, there's really 3 areas. Your genius, where you're just, this is me, man. I can do this all day long. It's not even work to me. I love it so much. I can do this. I'm competent at it. I can do it efficiently, productively. I can do it well. I can do it to meet all the standards, but I really don't like it. Or I don't even want to have to do that. I'll do it proficiently if I have to, but please find someone else to do that task. Now, when you realize that if you could break down all of the tasks in your work environment into those 3 categories, I really love it and I thrive at it and it lights me up and it jazzes me to do it and I can do it really, really well. I could do it really well, but I don't like to. I do it when I have to, or please keep that away from me. If you broke down all of the work in your environment, even in your own preferences, even in your own work styles, it might change the way you approach your job. It might also change the way you delegate the work that must be done into one of those 3 primary categories based on somebody else's desire to do the work. When this lady took the assessment the first time, she was actually on active duty in the military. Well, in the military, you always check off every list, you complete everything, and you do what somebody else tells you to do. Brainstorming, generally not the job of a soldier of any rank. You're going to receive orders from somebody who has already thought it out. Your job is not to brainstorm or figure it out. Your job is to do what you're told. And that's what her first assignment said. Her first assessment said, when I get a job task, I do exactly what I'm told. I follow everything. I check off everything. I'm very diligent in that. The second time she took it, she realized that one of her greatest strengths was to step out of the matter for a minute and say, what if we reimagined all of this? What if we just wondered around, not wandered, wondered, what if we thought of new ways to do this? What if we brainstormed this? What if we threw it out there and just see how many other ideas there are, other innovations that we could do to pull this off? And what she found was her greater strength, her greater capacity, her greater competence, and her greater joy in work was oriented around wonder more than finishing a task. Now, as a leader, you might feel like my people have given up on the diligence necessary to get the job done, and I have to wonder, have you as a boss kind of forgotten what it is that's important to them? What lights them up? Do you have the right people in the right zone doing the right kind of job? And as a leader, you've got to ask those questions, but I'm going to give you a little insider trick that you may not know. I've seen this work firsthand, And I practice it as a leader, as a communicator, sometimes literally by just sitting in the back of the room and saying absolutely nothing, just observing. It's a powerful tool. If you're a leader, I highly recommend you do it from time to time. Here's what you're looking for. You're looking for those little stories, micro stories, comments. Now, in attitude engineering, we're looking for those comments, those phrases, those repeated phrases especially, that kind of indicate to us as leaders how people think and feel about their job. How I think, how I feel, put those two together, that's an attitude. The attitude engineering process is to take how they think and how they feel as it comes out in language and then shift that language because it shifts how they think and how they feel. Now here's what you need to know. If you hear people telling these subtle little stories about their life, about who they are, about what lights them up, around the water cooler, in the break room, at lunch, at a banquet, at a dinner function for the company. They have these side conversations that have nothing to do with work. And if you'll listen closely to those stories, what you'll hear is what's genuinely important to them. Oh, they'll be clear to their friends about the things that they don't like to do at work, the things that drive them a little bit into anxiety at work, a little bit off the rails at work. It just irks them to have to do the same task over and over. And sometimes that'll be pointed at a particular person. But see, it's in these subtle little stories that they tell to each other on their social media. Those subtle stories tell you who they are. Not the doing, not the KPIs, the standards, the expectations, but the being. The who are they? What lights them up? What do they care about? What are they related to? And when you can hear through those subtle little stories what it is that really brings them joy in life, what it is that really brings them excitement in life, when you can shift their KPIs, their standards, their expectations, their metrics, their measures, when you can shift those levels of responsibility into a zone where they also get joy, fulfillment, completion, where they feel like I'm significant, I matter, my contribution isn't just the KPI. I'm actually doing something that I love to do, and what I love to do is good for my company. What I love to do is beneficial to my organization. When you see that shift take place, you're going to see a whole lot more productivity out of them because they're now doing what they love to do and seeing the results from it because they're more competent and they're more confident in the thing that you need done. Now, I understand it's not possible in every workplace. It's not possible in every organization to shift people around. Years ago, it's been probably close to a decade now, but there was a season that I worked with a group called ID. Not ID Life, the MLM, but ID within a larger organization. And in this organization, we would send people through a class where they would do 3 different assessments. It was their spiritual gifts, it was their DISC assessment, and it was their strengths finders. And then we would take the results of those things and look at all the places within our organization where there was a chance to volunteer. As an ID coach, one of the things that I was tasked to do was to meet people who had come out of this assessment and sit down with them and help them look through all the various volunteer roles and say which one of these volunteer roles or which one of, or 2 or 3 of these are something that you would really love to do and would accelerate your gifts. I had a particular opportunity to sit down with a lady, one of the ones that we were helping to place in a volunteer role, and I had her resume, I had her spiritual gifts assessment, I had her strengths finders, I had her own assessment of her work skills. What is it that you're really good at? And I looked at all of them and I realized there were a couple of places where her passions, her desires didn't match up her job. What she did for a living and what she loved to do, there was no correlation between them. And I asked her, I said, I see that you have a skill in video editing, color correction, framing, all of that kind of stuff. That's a pretty high level skill. We have need for volunteers in that capacity. Is that something you'd like to do? And I watched her face as she answered the question, and she looked me right in the eye and she said, Sure. And those eyebrows told me everything I needed to know. It was a little bit of dismissive. It was like, look, whatever. You know, if that's where you need me, I'm willing to serve. I'm willing to do that. It is my skill set. It is what I get paid for. I'm pretty good at it. If that's what you need, I'm willing to do it. And as soon as I saw the eyebrows, I turned the paper over and I said, let me ask you something. If budget was no issue, if you could do whatever you want to do in your off time, if you're not sitting behind an editing bay or standing in front of a camera, what would you want to do? And I could see little tears form in the corner of her eyes. And she said, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to host big parties. I said, what do you mean? She said, I just wish I could invite people to my home and have, you know, the trays of hors d'oeuvres and walk around and welcome them and introduce them to other people and let them build relationships. I love to watch people build relationships, and I don't even have to be involved in them. I just want to be the place where that kind of stuff happens. And I said, okay, and what would that look like on a weekend? And she said, you know, if I could invite the dignitaries and the VIPs and then introduce them to everybody else and say, you know, I just want you to be here and be comfortable and know that you're taken care of, and you can let all the other stuff in the world slip away. I'll take care of everything while you're here. I said, did you know that here in this workplace, here in this organization, we actually have a budget for exactly that. We actually have a kitchen staff that prepares what we send out on would be silver platters to a VIP room for the people who are here as guest speakers and those who are here to perform. And when they come here, and we don't want them to be bombarded by the crowd, we give them special access, and they come to these, you know, secret security rooms and they wait for their time to perform. And while they're there, they're kind of locked away, sequestered. They're on their own. There's nobody there other than themselves to kind of entertain them or make them feel at home. Did you know we actually have volunteers? Now, you've got to have a high level of discretion, and you've got to be able to protect their privacy and protect their security and know that you're not going to lead a bunch of people in there. You're just going to serve them. If the budget was unlimited and the opportunity was there to walk right into that room and bring them whatever they wanted, a special coffee or a drink or a snack or whatever else, how would you feel about doing that? And I thought she was going to jump across the table and hug me. She was so excited, so lit up. She's like, that's exactly what I want to do, but I don't have the kind of budget to do that. I can't buy those kind of snacks. I don't have an apartment that's worth entertaining people. And I said, again, I'm talking about right here on premises, and I'm talking about the fact that the organization already pays for all those things. We just need a few more people who will actually facilitate that. Go to the kitchen and prepare the trays. Go to the coffee shop and get their coffee made to order and then deliver it to them so they don't have to wander through the crowd. Would you be willing to do that? And she was tears of joy. She was ecstatic. She said, would I be willing? Nothing. When can I start? That's exactly what I want to do with my life. I want to be in hospitality. I mean, I can do video, but I want to be in hospitality. And it reminded me that on a regular basis, we tend to put people in a category that profits us. We put people in a space where what we're asking is, what can I get from them? How can I maximize the relationship I have with them? What can I do to get more out of them? More for the bottom line, more for the profitability, more for the customer service. What else could I do? And what often happens is we find a little gap where it seems like they've got a little more time than they've got work to do, and we find a little work that needs to be done and we throw it on top of them. And eventually we've got this chef salad of tasks where nothing really seems the same. It's all kind of related because it's all in the same bowl, but that's the only relationship. You got eggs and you got bacon and you got cheese and you got tomatoes and you got olives and you got salad. And you're looking at it going, which one of these is really who you are? Well, none of them really. I'm a toast kind of girl. The challenge for management, for leadership, is that at some point we've got to throw the brakes on and go, I can't just lead people with KPIs. I can't just lead people with metrics and measurements. I've got to lead people as people. And I'm going to be honest and tell you, as we make this major cultural, economic, geopolitical shift, where so much more of the work is done by robots, by AI, by technological devices than by humans, I'm afraid we're going to find ourselves in a place as leaders where our touch with humanity is eroded. We could easily find ourselves losing touch with our humanness altogether. I want to challenge you as a leader to remember you are a human, and for the most part, you lead humans. It requires more of us as leaders to maintain our humanity, to realize that people have an emotional connection to the work that they do. It's called purpose, it's called value, it's called significance. They also have a human connection to the people around them. They want to know that they matter to other people and that other people matter to them. They don't want to be so wrapped up in their job that they lose sight of the other humans that they're serving. They don't want to forget about the customers. You think I'm kidding? Just ask, is there anyone you know who loves to call into customer service and be handled by a robot or an automated device? I can tell you the number of times that I call into an 800 number or a service number. I just want a quick solution, and instead what I get is, your number so-and-so, so-and-so, a call will be made to you in 45 minutes. Would you like to speak to a human? Yeah, the odds that you're going to speak to a human are zero. And so all of a sudden my humanness gets a little frustrated, a little angry, a little irritated, and I feel like I'm being disrespected because I'm not important enough for another human to talk to. I only get the automated system, which half the time can't understand what I'm saying or process the thought or the problem that I have because it doesn't fit in the menu that somebody thought of as a potential problem. None of us want to be there as a customer. Most of us don't want to be there as a team member or an employee. And as a leader, it's your role to see to it that humanity is not forgotten in this transition. Yeah, there's work that humans have to do, but humans are not human doings, they're human beings. They have feelings, they have emotions, they have human connections, they have relationships, and all of those matter. And the more you can tap into what lights them up, what gives them joy, that makes them feel complete and fulfilled in the assignments that you give to them, the more you're going to find not only work satisfaction, job satisfaction, but a deeper correlation between performance and relationship. As a leader, that's on you. And if you have forgotten that, you may think all your team is slacking. They're not slacking. They're cracking. They've reached a breaking point. And if you don't fix that soon, you might lose them. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. There is a retreat coming up that I want you to know about. It's called the StoryPower Academy Retreat. This StoryPower Retreat is about focusing on your communication skills, taking them to the next level. Discover, develop, draft, deploy, and deliver some of the best stories you've ever learned. You're going to listen, create, connect, relax, and reflect around this beautiful lake scene in Granbury, Texas. It's a chance to rejuvenate and refresh and start over with some of the best training you can possibly imagine around storytelling, leadership, and communication. Join us, get away, and
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPowerAcademy.com for leadership development.